Alex was sipping from a cup of weak milk tea when Roy Cochrane arrived. Roy was a short, slight man with small penetrating eyes and a narrow bald head fringed with white hair. Although he was one of those men whose age is hard to estimate, Alex decided that he was probably in his early 60s. Believing it would be better if Roy discovered for himself why he had been called, Alex led him to the open window, told him that Carol had not been seen for 6 days, and then suggested he look outside. Roy's ageless smooth features contorted in horror as he smelled and heard what Alex had smelled and heard. "My God, you brought your keys with you, Mr. Cochrane." Roy wordlessly produced a massive bunch from his baggy brown trousers. "Then we had better investigate. Don't you agree?" Roy nodded. Alex led the way. When they reached the corridor, Roy turned sharply. "Miss Cargyle, I think you and your sister should wait here." Millie looked at him in surprise. "Why ever for? What are you expecting?" "I'm not sure, but we'll be back in a minute. Now you stay put, okay?" Millie watched silently from the doorway as Roy and Alex walked down the corridor. Outside Unit 501, Roy selected a key, twisted it in the lock, and hesitantly pushed the door open. But it was Alex who went in first. The room was long and narrow, obviously serving both as a living and dining room, with a polished extendable table near the door and a buff-covered settee in the back corner. Inexpensively framed prints covered the walls, with 3 jammed together above a bookshelf of paperback books. On his left, an open door led to a bathroom because he could see the end of a tub. Taking another step inside, he noticed a closed door on his right and next to it a tiny kitchen alcove. An archway ahead led to a balcony. He walked up to the closed door, but then found his hand hovering over the knob. This had to be the room adjacent to the old lady's apartment. He opened the door a fraction. A varnished wardrobe and the edge of a single bed came into view, but his attention was drawn to the shadow of something dangling. Suddenly grim with determination, he pushed the door open all the way. Carol was dressed in a flimsy cotton nightgown and was suspended from the light fixture by a grey electrical cord, her head twisted unnaturally to one side, her eyes open. Blowflies trapped under her night dress were responsible for the buzzing sound, although at least as many covered her face and arms, a quivering carpet of iridescent wings. A small bedside table stood near the corpse, and next to it an upturned chair. Because of a floor-to-ceiling window on his left and bright sunshine streaming through it, the room was unseasonably warm. He quickly closed the door. Roy in the meantime had gone out onto the balcony and had seen Carol through the window. He returned to the main room with a white face, and for a moment Alex thought he was going to faint. They stared at each other. Then, as if they had both agreed to it, they simultaneously made their way back to the old lady's unit. "Well?" Millie demanded, as Roy stepped into the TV room. "It's Miss Masterton," he said in a tone signifying more anger than shock. "She's dead. Hanged herself. Probably been hanging there for days." Millie sat down heavily on the nearest armchair. "Oh, how awful! That poor woman!" She looked at Alex, who was still in the doorway. "It wasn't a dead pigeon, was it? It was... oh, how awful!" "I hope God understands," Aggie said. "Carol was such a lonely young woman. Life must have become too much for her." That was the first either of them had called Carol lonely. Apparently the words quiet and lonely were synonymous in their minds. "We'll have to call the police," Roy said. "Yes, we will." But Aggie did not move, and neither did Millie. It was Roy who picked up the phone. "Ask for homicide," Alex said. Aggie stared at him in evident shock. "But didn't Mr. Cochrane just say Carol hanged herself?" "That's what it looks like, but she had no reason to, Aggie." "You can never be sure of that, you know," Roy said, dialing. "A friend of mine was—" He stopped. Everyone thought Len was happy, with not a care in the world, until he was found in his garage, with the doors shut and the car engine running. "Not this time, Mr. Cochrane. Carol was definitely murdered." "Is she a relative of yours, young man?" Millie asked suddenly, standing up and hobbling over to him. She rested a hand on his shoulder and peered into his eyes. "Or a close friend? Have you lost someone dear, someone you love?" "No, Millie, I barely knew her." Alex's voice had dropped almost to a whisper. "But she did know someone I care deeply about, and my friend is missing. I was hoping Carol could help me find her. Now I know she can't.